Hey, hey, it's another week. It's another month, Monday, August 3rd, episode 13, I think, of the spin cycle here. I know we've been 3 weeks, so it should be episode 16. But anyway, I don't know. As you can see, I'm still in a remote location in a secret underground bunker. No one
Bunker.
knows. Uh, it kind of is. Um, I'm using like three different internets of suspect quality, so hopefully the broadcast will be okay. Today we'll do our best. The next couple of weeks are going to be like that, but it will calm down. So I appreciate you being with us. Andrew Southwick, RC Williams, with you here on this spin cycle here, and RC, we well, I guess we should say this because you brought a story that I think is worth noting here, particularly when it comes to gas prices. I did a lot of driving last week and over the weekend, in fact, and I'll tell you what, I want to say Friday night I saw gas at 340 something. The
Yeah.
next day I saw it in some places over $4 along my route. And that coincided with President Trump at the same time saying, "Hey, Iran's going to come to the table." He called off some strikes, and then, of course, as we're going to talk about in just a moment, Trump says that Iran welched on the deal. So actually, let me bring that up. I got to share that screen here real quick. Not idea. Here we go. This came across Fox News. Where's my two-shot with the screen here?
It's like on again, off again, on again, off
Okay,
again, on again,
yes.
off again.
Well, it is the 3,847th victory we've had in the war that's not a war. And it's fantastic. Everybody went and celebrated and saw the new Spider-Man movie. So, that was fantastic all around the world. Anyway, let's see. Is this going to show up or is it going to not show up? Let me see here. Oh, it would help if I brought it on the screen. There it is.
Oh, hey.
Okay. Trump cancels Iran strikes at country's request ahead of Monday talks. Now he calls out a duplicitous Iran leadership. You'll notice this here. See if I can bring that up just a bit. And President Trump condemned Iranian leaders as duplicitous. Really? For appearing to back away from intentions to talk on Monday. Trump wrote on Truth Social the following: Iran leadership is unbelievably duplicitous. They ask for a meeting. Some would say beg. Talks begin with more scheduled in the future, and they say openly and proudly, we're not having any discussions, and nothing is being talked about. They're only dealing with Oman, Trump wrote. He went on to say they then go give their usual blather, saying the Strait of Hormuz will be operated powerfully by them when it is already completely controlled by the United States Navy or our blockade, or as some say, the United States Wall of Steel. Nothing gets through to Iran unless we want it to, and nothing will get through unless a deal or total surrender is accomplished. Whether Iran wants to admit it or not, we are in fact talking of a solution to a problem that they have caused for decades. It's simple. Iran will never have a nuclear weapon, which of course he told us they can't have anyway. I am confused. I think many of us are confused. That is beside the point. We had a deal, we don't have a deal. This is more back and forth, more coming in and out, saying there's a deal, there's not a deal. I do have, and I will say this: I'm working on both a monologue for the Sunday show Culture Crossroads, 5 p.m. Central on BeckTV.plus, but also one we'll share here as well, because there's some prophecy in Ezekiel 38. And I'm not saying that this is prophecy being fulfilled, but what it tells you is that as we get closer to the end times, for example, there is prophecy concerning Iran, which is biblical Persia and the Medo-Persians, but there is America's not around, or somehow we folded into something. There are some theologians. The Bible makes mention of a young lions. Some theologians say that, but we cannot say that for sure with any certainty. But what we can say with certainty is that Iran does exist. Now we may end up, quote unquote, with a victory out of this war. I don't know what that victory is. I don't think anybody does, but I would like to see that. I mean, I would love to see the pre 1979 Iran come back. There was a measure of freedom of religion in that area. There were more Christians back then. I also believe that again we're dealing with a regime that is one thing and a people that is another, and in
Hmm.
Iran. And they many of them are not um, Muslim or Islam, or in terms of with the or in line with the Iranian regime. They'll say what they have to stay alive, but they don't want this regime. They want them overthrown. Of course, how are they going to do that? We say people rise up. They don't have anything to rise up with.
Aha.
Nonetheless, here we are again doing more of the same. And this is the latest news on Iran as of this production. So just first, state of affairs. But anyway, I'm working on that, so I'm going to get more into that and those details later on. Because again, and the reason I mention that is because I've been contending the entire time that the thing that President Trump is missing in his execution of this war is the theological implications of what is going on. I don't believe Donald Trump actually has a theological leaning one way or another. He is transactional. He believes he will make it to heaven because he thinks he saved thousands of lives in COVID with Operation Warp Speed. He continues to say that, especially when it comes to whether or not, in his words, he will get to or make it to heaven. Okay, so that really tells you his worldview. The problem is when you're dealing with this kind of theological fervor, when you're dealing with this kind of religious fervor, you have to approach it with at least that understanding that they're not dealing with the same deck of cards that you are. And it's not your of course they're duplicitous. One of the things they do is they'll buy time so they can be restocked with weapons. And we know that China is also helping them restock those weapons too. So they'll say whatever they need to get a little bit of a pause to restock the arsenal. And then on the nonsense about we control the Strait of Hormuz, do we? Why are the gas prices so high then? Why is the energy so high? Why are we so if we control it, why are we still having all this issue? Why are we still having all this quote unquote conflict, war that's not a war?
Hmm.
Um, Iran has also said just this morning that they don't intend on, if they are to win, or again, whatever winning is, but Iran has no intentions on restoring the Strait of Hormuz to the same kind of control it was prior to February 28th. So again, I'm looking for what are we doing? What are we getting out of this? What is happening? Or are we in too deep that we're just trying to look for a way to CYA and do all this other stuff? I have no idea. And we're already at a point, as we talked about last week, where you have GOP talking heads going on GOP networks saying that GOP voters need to get used to higher prices or that they're not American. I mean, I don't know. I don't know where to begin and
You
or
get used
go.
to it.
Yeah, yeah. I know. Can you imagine that, Uncle Sam? You get used to
You
it.
get used to it. That's
I
what I
mean,
was thinking.
anyway, all right.
Andrew, listen, man, I think we kind of missed the bus here. We should have set up our prop bets on Polymarket and Kalshi
Oh
to
boy.
time out each time we were going to be on again, off again, on again, off again, because we would have profited from the spikes in gas prices. And then we could have told everybody else. And then at least in some way, we'd be able to afford our gas. I mean, I don't know what game is afoot here. Let me take that back. I know what game is afoot here. I wonder out loud why it's being played the way that it's being played. In what world does playing yo yo with gas prices, grocery prices, and people's lives make any type of sense? President Trump, the administration, please, a memo from the American people. Dear gentlemen, if you would please cease discussing whether or not someone is coming to the table until such a time as you have a deal in place, Iran is brought to heel, the Strait of Hormuz will open and return to normal, and things will flow without interruption. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Signed, with love, the American people.
You're not kidding. At the same time, there's a report, but I can't bring it up because I didn't pay for it, so I'm not going to show it on the screen. But
Love
Reuters
it.
reported that Trump is demanding lower gas prices, and he is calling on the gas companies, the gas stations, to bring the prices down at the pump. Isn't that the same thing that President Joe Biden did? In during COVID, he said, remember, and he made a big national address, and he said in his Joe Biden way, gas stations bring the price down, and then he whispered at the pump, the way he does. And so now we're using Joe Biden tactics and intimidation tactics to get private gas station owners to go out and lower their gas prices. Meanwhile, I mean, again, if the
I just, Andrew,
it's our policies and actions that are raising these prices, and then of course different states have different levels of gas tax. The owner of the gas station can't do anything about that, and they have to make a certain amount of money to make a living. President Trump, above all people, should know about that. You can't just say, I mean, you can't just say lower the gas prices and then magically, oh well, since you said so, we'll go ahead and do that. No, obviously there are major market forces at work that are driving those costs up, primarily driven by the fact that the Strait of Hormuz is open slash closed slash open slash closed, that the United States controls it but still has no control, that we've defeated Iran but they won't come to the table, that we're in a war that's not a war. You think that might affect what's going on every time we pull in for some unleaded?
hey, there are lags, by the way, in that, right? Because the oil supply is done a couple of months ahead, right? So some of this is priced in. Then you see some immediacy when a mouth is opened or a mouth is closed. I, um, reading that piece from Reuters, Andrew, 'cause I think I shared that one with you. It was interesting that President Trump's logic was he didn't believe that Chevron showed enough fealty for all the hard work that he and the administration have done in this process, and that they should get in there and bring gas prices down. Sounds a little socialist, communist kind of to me, but I digress. Here's the other thing, and I know people are frustrated because I'm frustrated right along with them, right? You're right, Andrew, about the gas stations. Here's the other thing is that gas is actually a gas station's lowest margin product, right? They barely make any money on gas, which is why they want you to come into the convenience store, which is
Mm-hmm.
why we're in the Southeast. Wawa is so popular and insert your place here because they've got to try to make money. So yes, they have to do that. Now, some will compete depending on vicinity, but look, I think the reality is this: is that it's going to get worse if this doesn't get solved because the phantom that we're running up against is the supply overall, right? I think we said this a week or two ago. I said, if we get to the end of August and we are still in the same boat, be prepared for things to start costing even more than they already do because our supply line now starts to dry up. And there's been conversation, even over the weekend, in the media about the fact that we're coming up short on diesel, right? Because of these issues. And so this is kind of the real gut check time. I don't think that being mad because someone didn't pay fealty to you or calling Iran duplicitous, which, as you so eloquently mentioned, we already knew, is really going to do anything about what somebody pays at the grocery store or the gas pump. You know what will solve that problem? Finishing this. That will solve this problem.
That'd be a big one. Finishing that, and again, as we have said time and time again, as many have said time and time again, stop spending money. It's certainly at Biden era levels, and even Trump 1.0 levels. Stop debasing the value of our dollar while at the same time screwing up our production supply. How about doing those two things instead of, for example, again having talking heads come out telling us to get used to it, or just getting up there and belly aching and saying, "Bring down the prices." Okay, sure, all right, and
Get used to it. I
that's
think
about as effective as when we're in traffic waiting in a red light saying, "Hurry up and turn green." Like it doesn't matter.
I tell you what. I tell you what, Andrew. Get used to it. I tell you what. I am fine. Talking heads getting used to it as long as I can use your credit card at the gas pump. I am as happy to get as used to it as you want me to.
Oh yeah,
Right?
let's get that congressional credit card and we'll all share.
Yeah. Why not? Right? Because sharing is caring, and it's our money anyway. So why not?
Sure.
Right?
That's true. It is our money. I'll take it first. Thank you.
Yes.
Well, speaking of sharing is caring. The I don't know if I want to describe him as erstwhile, but the
Oh boy.
perhaps infamous, I don't know, James Carville, Democrat strategist, certainly was came to rose in I believe 1980 or so election, and then of course was tied in with the Clinton campaign and everything. Anyway, talking to now, he's threatening to leave the Democrat Party because of all the communism, and I
Hmm.
don't blame him. It is interesting. He'll decry capitalism at the same time he'll decry communism. I'm not really sure what monetary system he would like. But nonetheless, I agree with him that communism is a poison and should not be even flirted with. However, it is certainly overtaking the Democrat Party. And by the way, actually, the one of the ways that Islam is infiltrating America is also through the Democrat Party. And I have another story on that again, I'm not ready to bring today, but I will have later this week. It will shock you. But because it has to do with some of the strategy to take down America, to defeat the great Satan. And do not think that these forces in the world are not trying to do that. And they realize that they can't beat us with military. So they're going to divide us from within. They're going to take Abraham Lincoln's advice. They're going to take actually Jesus Christ's advice. A house divided cannot stand against itself. And look at what's happening to us now. We're becoming more and more divided by the day. Anyway, James Carville says he's going to leave the Democratic Party over all the socialism. I think that's fantastic. Go ahead and leave the Democrat Party. It's not like he's going to become a conservative overnight either. But the reason I bring this up, RC, is because the Republicans have the same problem. And this is where we are at. And we've mentioned this before, actually, for months now, that the two-party system is fracturing and breaking right now. And I think overall, it's not just Republicans and it's not just Democrats. It is the fact that people are now waking up to see that both of these parties have been captured. The Democrats by communists and Islamic communists as well. And then the Republicans by the globalists and the technocrats. And we are both seeing that neither party is carrying either of our worldviews, for better or worse, depending on your perspective. And you are ending up with a lot of people saying the exact same thing. I am not going to play this game anymore. I'm not going to do this. At some point, this does birth, I think, some kind of other party before the Constitution is completely dead and gone. I think there's another try, but that'll be an interesting coalition because the same things that bound the GOP, of course, don't bind the GOP anymore. The same things that bound the original Democrats do not bind them anymore. And I'm speaking of, the Thomas Jefferson style. But nonetheless, you are seeing this, and it'll be a weird coalition. There is a world where we go into the ballot box, and you have Bill Maher and James Carville voting the same way as Andrew and RC in a variety of races, particularly nationally. And that day is coming. Do you think that day is coming sooner than later?
Oh, so a little commentary here. James Carville on your screen, looking like a fine mix of Skeletor and Professor X. He's looking just dashing for 562 years old. Congratulations to you.
I gotta say,
Mr. Carville.
You mentioned that though. Hold your thought. You mentioned that because some people, you might have seen the movie Primary Colors with John Travolta back in the late 90s. It was based off a book that was about the Clinton campaign, and Billy Bob Thornton played the version of James Carville in that. And they both are morphing into the same person. And I think it's fantastic. And I also find Billy Bob Thornton to be really entertaining. I enjoy his work. That's just an aside. Never mind. All right, go ahead.
Isn't it funny? Do we almost file that under how much people look like their dogs?
It might be. It might be. No offense to either James Carville or Billy Bob Thornton. I don't have anything against either one. I just think it's getting uncanny.
Carville as a Cajun would appreciate my jokes, but I digress. Okay. So here's the thing. We have talked about it, Andrew. Once again, Watchman Brief, Culture Crossroads, the spin cycle, ahead of the curve, right? Tomorrow's news, like 3 months ago, we told you what was coming. Here is what I find interesting, Andrew, something that happened over the weekend. And this picture has made the rounds in circulation. We've talked about kind of the end of the road of the two-party system and what does it look like? Well, a couple of folks got together at Tucker Carlson's place up in Maine over the weekend. And apparently the topic of discussion was, what do we do about creating an alternative to the current status quo? Now, I'm not coming out for or against that. That's not my point. But my point is this. What we have long said is that people can stand up other options. And that happens. We have independents. We've got smaller parties and everything like that. But the rubber meets the road when someone or someone's decide that there needs to be an alternative, and they actually have the financial muscle and the relationships and a plan to make a run, right? And the real formula is this: no matter how much money you have or how many relationships you have, it's going to take time. So what I think happens in rooms like at Tucker's place and other rooms where people have resources is they say, okay, what are the most ready-made races that we can win? Let's go win something. And let's show people that this is viable and it makes sense and they should get on board. Don't think for 1 minute they're not coming for it. You're just in that phase now where some of these are starting to pop up. I mean, Elon Musk a while back had started his own thing out of frustration, right? And there's a guy who has enough money and enough resources. He's getting back into the game again for the midterms. I think this is one of those calls, right? And for someone like James Carville, who is polarizing in a sense, he's entertaining, but he's also polarizing, to make a statement like that, Andrew, like he means what he says. He will actually go do those things. And I think there are people on our side that will do the same thing simply because the party that we've come to believe represents our interest and best represents us no longer does. And people have asked us, and I've heard feedback from people saying, listen, I would rather leave it blank. XYZ doesn't even need my vote. I would rather leave it blank than once again have to hold my nose and take it because I can't anymore. And if I do that, I'm contributing. I'd rather not. Boy, what a weird place to be in.
It is. And to James Carville's credit, he's also a very smart political strategist. Like he's not a dumb man. And we would certainly disagree on the fixes to the ills of America in large case, but we do agree on communism. And again, that's why this is like a Twilight Zone. Or actually, well, it is a Twilight Zone, but also, did you ever watch Swing Vote with Kevin Costner? Like, I think four people watched it. I was one of them. Yeah, I enjoyed it. And if you haven't seen it, Kevin Costner, it's basically about through a turn of events, he ends up being the one vote that will decide the presidency. And you have Kelsey Grammer, who was Frazier, and then the late Dennis Hopper playing the Republican and Democrat candidate for president, respectively. And they're both just pandering to this one man and trying to figure out what he wants. And in so doing, they flip positions. All of a sudden, the Republican is running as the liberal, the Democrat is running as the conservative. Neither of them are being themselves, that whole thing. But it seems like in some degree that is happening when it comes to things like data centers. In some, the classical liberal response to communism, because James Carville isn't the only Democrat strategist. Van Jones has been on talking about that this communism is dangerous for the Democrat Party. And it is. I think it's still a political kryptonite. But again, you have a bunch of people, conservative and liberal, who can see both parties just leaving them both in the dust. And I think, as we say, that is really the true identity of the uniparty, where you have a token opposition, a controlled opposition in the Republican Party that still advances these issues. And maybe they're not even Democrat or progressive issues anymore. They're uniparty globalist issues. And whatever was the Democrats is gone, whatever was the Republicans is gone. Both of them are working together and giving us the illusion of choice. And more of us are starting to wake up to that and say, no, we're not going to do it. But we have a problem because they, being the political parties, have cornered the money market. And it's hard. And particularly with Republicans, we always want return on investment. We don't spend money to advance really the message very well. Democrats do that very well. Democrats spend money on podcast hosts and influencers and all kinds of things, and they're not looking necessarily for the financial return because they know the messaging will mean power. They like the power return. The Republicans don't do that. We only spend money on known commodities and celebrities, and then we have them speak at conferences, and we make our money back by charging everybody for it. But it doesn't advance the ball. We look for an issue so that we can have a talking point. They look for the talking points and they make it an issue, and one is outcome based, the other is window dressing. And unfortunately, the Democrats have the more outcome based version of that strategy, if I'm being honest about the party that I support, the Republicans. So anyway,
Andrew,
go ahead.
Hey, so this is an important point. So when we were writing Empowered to Act, our first book, during that process, one of the things that we did covertly was we went through the National Democrat Training Center. Now, I don't encourage people to do that, although if you're going to fight a battle, you should, because what you just said, Andrew, is really important. As much as you may dislike them as a conservative, they are focused on outcomes. They're not focused on idolatry or how good of a show it is or whatever the slogan's going to be. It's like the gentlemanly swordsman fighting against the guy who's doing it Krav Maga style. All he cares about is winning. He doesn't care how much damage he inflicts to you or how it comes. All he cares about is getting one more vote, one more inch than you do. We wrote a book on it because people wouldn't read Rules for Radicals from Saul Alinsky. We turned that into Watchman Actions training for this very reason. If you're going to advocate and win on these issues, you've got to understand how to move people. No matter how right or wrong you believe that statement is, it doesn't make it any less true. And I still don't think we get it, Andrew. And most people, your traditional Republicans or conservatives, are not going to get it until it's too late.
And yeah, and when you talk, and so that's why I think you have guys now like Tucker Carlson and Elon Musk, people that either have the money or have access to the money now saying there's an opportunity to do this. And I do think that strategically, they're, as you said, they would be doing that correctly politically. Find the races you can win, and not just as a proof of concept, but find the races you can win. Start to get that party, whatever that is, legitimized, because then you have a little bit of a groundswell, and it's not just the Green Party or the Libertarians that make a nice statement and they sit down, or the weird cartoon dudes that show up on every election and make a farce of themselves. But you have something of substance that maybe has contributed to some local policy, some state policy eventually, and then that is the way to do it. However, I do think that I don't know that America has, I don't know, it's hard to say, but one question is, how much time does America, as it currently sits, have before it's not America anymore? Before too much power has shifted to the executive. And I think that's the clock we're running against. And the problem is, we don't know. We can't see that clock. We don't know what the timer is. Correct. And do we have as much time as the GOP had to build their party in the days of the Whig to eventually replace them for, at the 16th president? Or do we need to move a little more expeditiously and aggressively than that, politically speaking, in order to get some of this across? I do think there is, and does exist, a great swath of America that we don't agree socially. I think we clearly don't. And we don't agree necessarily on all the nuances of capitalism and how we would like that to work. Like, for example, that making should healthcare be a commodity as opposed to a government subsidy. However, there are enough of us that still say we still want America as founded constitutionally, and that is what we would consider that today, a bipartisan piece. I think that's there. How do we capture that vote and get enough of that vote away from the uniparty to begin to turn this around? That may be, if America is not going to have a national divorce, that may be the way we have to do it, because I think both parties are gone. Neither of them are listening to their constituents, and they don't have any desire to. I never thought, we got to run in a couple of minutes, but I really never thought ever you would see, well, any party, but certainly the Republican Party, go on national TV, look their own voters in the face and say, get used to high prices. You would never advise a candidate to say that. You'd never advise a party to say that, but now that's our position. Get used to it or you're not American. I'm sorry, no.
If you like your oligarchy, you can keep your oligarchy.
Yeah, or as it is popular to say now, they can get the flock out of here.
Well, there you go.
I gotta make some T-shirts about that so we can sell some swag, like flock off and things like that. I gotta stop giving away these good ideas. Somebody's gonna steal them. All right.
I know.
All right. Well, we gotta wrap it up here for today. We'll be back tomorrow, roughly midday. I never know what time we're going to be on. Eventually, we'll have a regular time. I do promise. But anyway, thank you all for checking it out. If you haven't yet, please like, share, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff, whether you like us or hate us. If you would, try to keep it at least marginally civil. All right. We may not agree, but we can still have a conversation. It can be okay. Let's be the chain breakers here on social media. Anyway, for R.C. Williams, I'm Andrew Southwick. R.C., give us a rundown. Where can people find all of our other stuff wherever it exists?
Yeah, Andrew, all things start with watchmanaction.org. You can find links to everything about Watchman Action. Also, the Watchman Action Network. Now, if you're in North Dakota, we are on Bet Cable Channel 40, so you can watch us over the air, but you can watch us streaming anywhere. We're on YouTube streaming live 24/7. We're on Rumble streaming live 24/7. We're on X, all under Watchman Action. You can find plenty of episodes of the Culture Crossroads, and the Spin Cycle airs every weeknight, 9:30 p.m. Eastern on the Watchman Action Network. So if you missed part of today, just make sure you watch tonight at 9:30 Eastern. You can get the whole thing.
All right. Well, for R.C. Williams, I'm Andrew Southwick. This has been the Spin Cycle. Thank you for hanging out with us. We will see you next time.